Hey everybody, my name is Gerald Keys. I am a engineer producer, Sacramento, California. Live here in LA. Been doing some stuff. I'm actually your guys' music production advisor for any of you guys that are students with the program here at Recording Connection. If you're not part of Recording Connection, you do get opportunities to work with people like myself, a couple other professionals here that are going to be your second mentors when it comes to taking to the next level with your production or your engineering skills. Sorry for the technical difficulties. This is new. Anytime you're doing something new, you got a lot of bugs to work out. So we will be working those bugs out so that next time it'll be a lot more fluid and ready to go. So today, what I'm going to work on, this is kind of like the first series for me. So I like to start everything from the bottom. So we're going to do foundational things like signal flow and gain staging. So because I'm more of a mixer and a producer than a tracking engineer, I really want to talk about gain staging and how to control levels inside of a mix. And I do have a dummy session that I pulled up. The session is not any of my music or any music from any of my clients. It's actually a construction kit from a company called Y&K Audio. So Y&K Audio, they make great construction kits, so we're going to use their stuff. And I'm going to cover a few topics, cover things like the definition of gain staging, the purpose, the reason why you use gain staging. We have what I call the -3, -6 decibel rule. We're going to be talking about interrupting signal flow. We're going to talk about getting volume back after using effects processing like EQs, compressors, gates, anything like that. And then we're also going to do master bus processing. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over. Feel free to ask any questions at any time. We do have a moderator in the room. So if you do have any questions, I definitely can just fit those in. There's no stupid questions. Just get some information. All right, let's see. Switch over. Okay, so I believe you guys should see my screen. If you do, you will see that I have pretty much a full track laid out, and I've kind of sequenced it in a way, to where it just doesn't sound like the same thing over and over as you play through it. First things first, I like to do housekeeping anytime I'm working on a session mixing. First thing I do is label the parts of the song. I listen to the song in its entirety, whether it be the rough mix or just the sessions with faders pulled up, and I'll go through and just mark parts that are the hook, the verses, pre-chorus, post-chorus, anything like that, bridges. That way I know when I'm jumping between the different sections where I'm going really easily as opposed to having to guess. It's very important when you're engineering, just because time is money. You want to be able to save as much time as possible in everything that you do. So here along the side, I did color code. I didn't name just because I didn't have the time to for this session, but the tracks are named so you can see what is what. Technically, these two tracks right here should be up here. We're gonna do this the right way. Kicks hit kicks, 808s, put the 808s on top. It's just my kind of flair, snares right after the kicks. And then hi-hats and stuff like that there. So first thing we're going to do is actually go over where you start your gain staging from. So when they get into Pro Tools, especially in the new generation, if you don't come from like an analog background or using a tape machine, some people have this misconceived notion that these tracks don't have any relevance to to this fader or to this meter, and that this fader right here, which is your mix fader, is controlling the volume for this, which is not really true. And I believe that's post fader, this post fader control over the meter. So this is a mixer. Just think of the actual mixer in a tangible form, like a Mackie mixer, Allen and Heath Behringer, anything that is a mixer. And so that's what this section is going to be. The actual edit window is going to be considered your tape machine. So it's where you printed the material and you're playing it back, and the outputs of that tape machine are going into your mixer, so that you can do some multi-channel mixing. And that's where we get into this world. So for me, when I mix, I prefer to work in this world. I like to loop the section here and then go into this view to actually work. That way I'm getting, I'm letting my ears do more of the work as opposed to being really visual with it, because all the colors and stuff can really get distracting and the waveforms. That's just for me. So let's take a listen to the track real quick. So that's pretty much how the track is. It's just a big loop over and over, and I just took out some elements. But the main thing we want to start out with, and this is what I tell all my students when I do my tutoring sessions, is that you always want to make sure that you have a master fader. It's just part of the audio world. Not having a master fader is going to really hurt you in the long run, because you're not able to monitor what some decibels are. I'm probably saying that horribly wrong, but the overall volume for all the tracks are being told to you by this meter. So we play. We're killing it right now. So one thing I try to explain to students is headroom. Headroom is pretty much the point from your loudest peak in your metering and your signal to where zero is. And so what we want to do is we want to stay away from zero, especially, we want to stay far away from zero, especially when we're starting a mix, due to the fact that if we start our mix and things are already beating up here, when we add EQs, compressors, anything like that that adds more amplitude or more decibels, we're pretty much going to automatically be distorting. So what we want to do is we want to prevent distorting. You see right here, 8.1 decibels. That's pretty much how many decibels we're peaking at. So we're 8.1 decibels over zero. So that means we literally have no headroom. So what we want to do is we want to use gain staging to kind of reverse the process. And this is for mix engineers that, every genre, has their thing. Where if you're a mix engineer and you get sessions from producers, and the tracks, the samples are really hot and they're really, blaring. This is going to work out for you guys, because I was in that same boat working for a lot of different producers, not really understanding when they have these full tracks how to make it better when they're already really loud, but really understanding how to control that. So that's really what's going to help. So right now, what we're going to do, so we're going to work backwards. So since we have drums, and we have synths, these other colors are all the synths. We're gonna go over, like I said, what's my -3, -6 dB rule. And this is just something that I picked up from other engineers, tons of YouTube videos, and just trying to apply it in the studio. We pretty much have no space right now. So what we want to do is we want to go backwards in our chain to be able to lower some elements to be able to give this some breathing room. We have a question, and anytime you guys have a question, feel free to just toss something out there, and the moderator in the room, he will notify me, and I'll try to fit that into whatever I'm talking about. If it's completely off course, we'll just save it till the end. But if it fits, I'll just go ahead and throw it in there. First question is actually, do I put effects on my master bus? I do. I live for, I don't think we have it on this computer, but I live for the Waves SSL master bus compressor, or I like the API 2500, and I teach some of my students why I like the API 2500, because there's some cool tricks I learned from a good, great engineer, Bob Horn. So it's pretty cool. But right now we're killing, so we can take this back. I usually put it master bus effects maybe 20% into what I'm doing. So once I pull all the faders down and I pull everything back and get a good emotional balance, then I'll throw my compressor on, just so that I can start getting a glue and start mixing it into my compressor. But I do keep an eye on my compressor, and I check on it, probably like 200 times a mix, to make sure that my compressor is not overworking and kind of destroying the dynamics of my overall mix while I'm mixing, because you can kind of get into that cycle of doing so. So first thing we're going to do is look at what's killing our master bus. So as we see, it's mainly drums. Anytime you're dealing with like urban music, dance music, anything like that, it's mainly like beat-driven music. Drums are going to be the most power. And so since we need to work backwards, what we're going to do is we're going to do what we call interrupting the signal chain or signal flow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the drum tracks and take these outputs and just use an empty bus 1 and 2 in this case. And then I'm going to create an auxiliary track. And I'm going to name that auxiliary track the input the same as the output. That way, these are no longer going straight to the master fader. These now are actually being interrupted and now are going to this track, which I'm going to name drum sub. And that's going to give me an overall control for my drums going to my master fader. So I've just interrupted the signal chain. So now we play. I'm beating in here, but I can just turn that down. And now I have so much room left in my head, in headroom. Now, with saying that, I definitely want to go ahead and do that for my music group too, so let's just go ahead and do that to make life easier. Let's just, oops, button. And we'll use bus 3 and 4. These outputs we assign. We need to make a destination for it, like we did with the drums. And let's see. So we got another question. I thought I said it, but I guess I didn't. It was just on my mind to say. Somebody's asking, how much headroom should you leave? Should you leave on the master fader? And this is from Paul. So Paul, most engineers will say around -6, -3 dB. I just say -6 because that gives you the more room for you to push your master bus plugins to give you more color and for them to really do what they need to do and shine. Generally, your signal overall, when you don't have any plugins and you're just pulling faders up, my preference is to keep it around -15 to -10. And then because everything's dramatically lower coming from my speakers, I just turn the volume of my speakers up. Since I have, I have an Apollo, so I have an overall volume control for my speakers as opposed to having to go behind each speaker and turn it up. So if you have something like the Personas or an Apogee or something that will control both your left and right speakers at the same time, well, that will, just turn that volume up for your monitoring volume, and that will give you the emotional volume you need to feel good about the mix. So like I said, -6, -3, but when you don't have any plugins going, go ahead and keep that at -15. And the reason why the -3 to -6 is so important is because if you send this off to mastering, they need headroom to be able to do what they need to do. And if you're already, taking away their headroom, they really can't do too much, and you'll get a call, and, you know, they probably won't want to work with you again. So just go ahead and make sure that you know, be courteous to the mastering engineer and leave them some headroom. If you want to make a, you know, a bounce for a client or for yourself to play in the car, it's okay to, you know, smash it, but when you send it out to get it mastered, you definitely want to make sure that you're not hitting over -3 dB. Like I said, -6 to be safe. So let's do the music bus. That's a good question, Paul. And this is bus 3 and 4. Outputs to input, simple. That's all signal flow is. Signal flow is just output to input. It's not rocket science. It's saying that this signal has a certain amount of amplitude or decibels, you know, tomato, tomato, and it's being processed and it's creating a certain amount of amplitude, and then it has an output. That output has to go into another input in order for that input to play an output. That's, I can't even explain it more simplistic than that. So this one be music subgroup. So now if you play 0, let's just go to the better part of the song that has everything. So working backwards on the next phase, now that we've been able to interrupt the signal, what we want to do is lower these drums. Now, no headroom. These three right here, no headroom. So let's go ahead and go highlight those, go back to the arrange window. Now, if you're on Pro Tools 10 or higher or later, I believe they have this on Pro. I don't think they have it on Pro Tools 9, but clip gain. It's the coolest feature to me that they have in Pro Tools that they've added, and it's glorious. And what this does, this allows you to control how much input signal is going into your mixer. So if we look, start on the first track. Oh yeah, I always put these in solo safe. Sorry. Hold down Command, and if you're on Mac, if you're on PC, it is the, I want to say, Control button, and click on those. As long as those gray out, it's in solo safe mode. That means if you solo a track that it's associated with, it'll still play. So that makes life easier too. And we're gonna go to troublesome tracks. So we want to get these out of clipping world, or they're not clipping, but we want to get those away. That way we can put some compressors on them and really get some more pump out of them, some RMS. So let's just do this. Let's just take this down. Let's just say 5, almost like 5.5. So now we got a little bit of room to play with. Not much, but samples generally are already beat punchy, and that's where you have to use your ear and use your taste. I've in the past have worked with like great producers, and their samples are already mixed really good and compressed and EQ really good. And just me being a new engineer, I wanted to throw every plugin on there to try to make it bigger. And sometimes the art itself is knowing when to not put something on something, and just to go ahead and just use volume to play a big part. So in this case, I can't hear the samples that good to know how great they are, but I like beefing stuff up just because I'm like that. So I'm gonna pull this down to -10. All these things down to till the peak meter is reaching -10. So let's do another 5 dB. And don't worry about lowering these decibels, because there's always a point in the signal chain where you can bring them back up. So just because I have these like this, smart guy engineering. this one. All right, so there we go. Even with the 808, let me do it with the 808 too. A little bit more than I wanted, but you know, I'll go ahead and go with that. So now we do this. Take with my feds, it doesn't matter. Now, if we look at our master fader is a lot more happier. So, we're still not right where we want it because there's something else that's popping. This little track. Snares. Don't bother me. And let's do the same things. Lower that, like 10 decibels. Okay. So now we look at our drum bus. Our drum bus actually has, you know, a good amount of headroom. Because I don't want to take any more volume away from these tracks, in Pro Tools, I can go ahead and grab my trim tool, wherever that may be. Or you can grab something that has an input control and just turn down the input, and that will help. So in this case, trim, there we go. All right, so now what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and lower this by, let's just do 3 dB. So now I have a lot of good headroom except for like these little peaks. Now this is also where fader control comes into play. Me, I kind of did it from without touching faders kind of position thing because I kind of like unity faders just because that's just like the phase I'm in right now. But a lot of the things that I just showed you, you can definitely still do with your fader. And by now I would have actually mixed it, you know, got a good balance with the faders. But for this, I just wanted to show you guys meters, faders, and input signal and how to control that. So, now the problem is we lost a lot of power from our drums because we reduced so much volume. So if you have like the Waves or UAD or any cool plugins, what you can start doing now are using those plugins to bring back and sharpen your sound. So like in this case, we have one of my favorite stock Digi plugins, which is the BF76, which is an 1176 compressor limiter. And I use the UAD version of this and the Waves version of this. And I just love the low end presence that it gives and a lot of the beef that it puts onto a track. So we're gonna see what it does right now. All right, so I didn't really like how that was coming out. So what I'm going to do is actually go the long route and actually go through each track and process. So that's how I normally mix. I actually go through each sound and say, okay, how can I make this sound more exciting? How can I make this sound better? Or does this sound already do what it needs to be doing? So these kicks, I actually do want to bring these together. That way I can mix them together. Instead of putting multiple instances of a plugin on across all three, I actually just want to bring those together. But I'm probably just going to do just the kicks because the 808, I want to let that live in its own world. So I'll do this. It's in, assign, and we'll do 5 and 6. 5 and 6. Call this kicks. So now that I've interrupted the signal flow again for my kicks, I actually want this kick bus to be going to the drum subgroup. So missing that, bus 1 and 2. That way it's still with my drum subgroup. And I'm gonna go ahead and just bring these down a little bit. So I want to bring a lot out of these kicks. So what I'll do is go to my EQ. This is bad boy, 7-man. And then I'll go into it. It'll be another webinar probably about EQing and like how to EQ and like what to look for, what to pull away, how to approach it, stuff like that. But for today, just gonna do some quick stuff. So we're going to bypass it, and then we're going to play it just so we can hear what the difference did. So it helped that kick really pop out, and it's still not distorting. So if you kind of take that ideology of taking back volume to be able to put it through other stuff and use those controls to give you your volume back, that's kind of the ideology on how you use plugins and how you get the most out of gain staging. You know, if you're coming out of Pro Tools into, say, an SSL or outboard gear, you know, you always want to get it in there with a good amount of volume to where, you know, it's kind of hitting the sweet spot or the point of where the piece of equipment or plugin is going to work best or where it's going to start working and shining. But you do want to be cautious to not overload it so that when you move those parameters, you can really, you know, use the parameters to the fullest extent. Because and this is something I see common amongst a lot of engineers and some more of the pro guys I've been around. They really use the plugins to the fullest. But, you know, myself, I was always like, you know, never really too high of a decibels kind of guy because it would always push me over the limit with my ins and outs. But then once I really got the grasp of gain staging, I was able to really understand that these volumes are there for a reason. Like having 18 decibels, if you weren't supposed to be going to 18 decibels, then, you know, it wouldn't allow you to go that far. But you do have that option. It just depends on what you're willing to give up in the mix to be able to utilize that much of that band and stuff like that. So in our case, since I lost a lot of decibel, like, you know, 10 dB of power, I have 10 dB of power that I can pull from other places, like this frequency or other frequencies, to accumulate to 10 dB, or I might only use 5 dB across this EQ to, you know, bring back 5 dB, and then I'll go into a compressor like the BF76, and this will give me my other 5 back, and it'll sound a lot better or different, you know what I mean, depending on what you're going on. And it's just a lot of trial and error. So yeah, So that does that. So if we did it for, say, the snares on tom, just copy that over. Take the low frequencies out because most likely we don't need any of that stuff. And it helps the sound stand out a lot more too. That. And that's just fine, you know, kind of like principal frequency thing. They do a little bit more to touch it up, but I'm not in the best monitoring environment right now, so. I guess the point, kind of back up my point that I was trying to say earlier. If you look at how many decibels I'm raising in this band, 11.8 dB, and look at my output. So you see, we're still kind of, you know, going back to my -3, -6 rule, we're still at -6 dB, even with this much of impact in that frequency range, because the EQ is just a fader for specific frequencies. So once I kind of pinpoint frequency I like and I really want it to pop out of the speakers and stand out of the mix, then I can just boost that. And I don't have to, you know, mess with my output gain unless I really want to, and I don't want to, you know, use compression to get that output gain. But you just kind of learn over time, and you know, you learn your taste and what works for you and what works for certain records and what doesn't. So in this case, you know, I'll just leave it like that because it's actually poking out a little bit more. So same thing for this. And I'm being very extreme with my like decibels and stuff like that, just because I can't really hear so much what's going on. But I just really wanted you guys to get the concept of how important gain staging is and how it will allow you to maximize the sound in your plugins. Because I've come across, and I've been guilty of it myself, and I just in the last couple of years have learned how to harness gain staging for the benefit. But you don't want to get caught in the trap of using a million plugins to try to get you to a certain space when you don't have to. When it really, plugins can hurt you if you use them incorrectly. And to get a good mix, the art of mixing is just getting a good emotion out of the track. So if you only need 5 plugins for the entire track because it was recorded that good or it sounded that good, and you're able just to pan and do some automation and stuff like that, that right there is going to give you a better product than saying, okay, you know what, there's a lot of work, or the song is good, but I want to make it, you know, 10 times better, and I'm going to use all these different tools and all these different plugins, but it's like, you know, you really should have an understanding of why you're using a certain plugin. And if you're experimenting with sounds, it's perfectly fine. But it's very, very important that you understand why you're using plugins. Since we have our drums there, oh, that's so sometimes I would actually put a EQ, or I do have an actual chain that I use for drum buses sometimes, depending on where the drums are coming from. So I usually EQ my drum bus just because I want certain things to kind of gel together. To me, EQ over a drum bus helps glue frequencies from different instruments together, because when you don't have compression, nothing's really meshing together in time. And then when you're dealing with EQ, when you EQ the high end, or the the snap of a snare, and the kick drum is still in that same bus, well, you're also raising some of the frequencies of that kick drum also. And so to me, in my head, how it works out in my ears, it feels like the kick drum is now becoming more one with the snare when I do stuff like that. And sometimes it's completely polar opposite. Sometimes it's like the worst possible thing I could have ever done, and then I'll go through 30 minutes of playing with it, and it just won't work. It doesn't speak to me. I'll just take it off, and then I'll leave it, because if it sounds good, it sounds good. Let's see. Music bus. Is there any? Let me see if there's any questions. I'm talking a lot. Are there any questions? So music bus. I have a love and hate relationship with music buses, just because depending on how many elements, like there's no right way to do it. If you give a mix to 5 mixers with the same mix, you're gonna come back with 5 different mixes. And so instrument buses are all really about how can you get, and this is just my opinion, how can you get the music to gel with the drums and the vocals to where they're not overpowering the vocal, which in most cases is going to be the focal point of the song, but more so supporting. How can you get that to sound more supporting as opposed to being a separate part of the song? So I always work on my drums. How do I get my drums to fit good with my 808 and my sub bass? Then I go from how do I get my music to work with my drums and all that, and then my vocals, how does all that work? So music subgroups come from me in a lot of processing, because I like to process one actual track a lot, depending upon where my mind likes to go. So I won't go too much into that right now in regards of why I use certain delays, or why I use reverbs and widening type of effects, because this track doesn't have too much going on, and we are kind of wrapping up in a little bit. But that would definitely be another hangout. So on a general sense, I do like to put a compressor with a very fast release. I just play with the attack to feel when it kind of grabs the sound, and a decent ratio, kind of low ratio, just so that I can allow the sounds to kind of be pulled together and then pushed apart really fast, and be kind of explosive. And then I just use the fader to kind of blend that against the drums or the vocals or any other elements that are in the song. And so once I have my drum group all good, and my drums are sounding really great, and my music is sounding really good, then I'll start paying attention to the master fader more. And so here, you see my rules kind of like not play here. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and grab this and this. I'll group them together. I'll just bring them down. So now, like I said, I lost a lot of volume, but if I turn my speakers up, I'll get that volume back. And what I want to do is start adding EQ, compression, sometimes wideners or stereo imagers, or in brick wall limiters to get what's called RMS. RMS, in like a layman's way of how I can explain it, is like the noticeable loudness, as opposed to something being loud but not being defined. And RMS gives you a loudness of like definity. You can hear all the different elements. They're all leveled out, you know, to where they sound equal in volume. And so there's a few things I like to use. In this case, Maxim is a great brick wall limiter that helps with RMS. I generally will use the brick wall limiter last, though. I will use a actual EQ, something that's more suited towards mastering. There's a few companies that I really do like Fab Filter. I like anything UAD, Metric Halo, Channel Strip, Ozone by Isotope. Like, you know, you can find a lot of mastering type plugins, but this isn't mastering. People get mixing and mastering not confused, but they kind of interject those into the same process. Nowadays, it is more than it was before, just in the sense of there is master bus processing that you do to get a you know, for your demos or for your songs that you're gonna put on SoundCloud, to get it loud and to get it competing. But they're mastering itself for mastering engineers who actually have the mastering equipment and the things that are necessary, the rooms. That's a whole different art. And granted, it's doing the same thing. It's just that they're going to do it a lot better and with a different ear. Because if you're mixing your own record or mixing a record and then you try to master it, it's not getting the differential opinions that it needs to be able to, you know, go out to the perfect state. Now, sometimes people do everything in-house and they master and it comes out great. Perfect. You know, we're getting in that age where people are learning better. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and use some EQ, brick wall limiter, because I don't have all the tools that I normally use. And so normally I'll use an EQ, very good EQ, parametric for sure. I would use like a tape machine, maybe before the EQ, just to kind of help with RMS, like Slate Digital Virtual Tape or the UAD Studer or the Ampex or anything like that. Waves, the Kramer is great with waves. And then I'll put my EQ. That way, whatever frequencies the tape has given me that I don't like, I can take those out with the EQ. So this will be my surgical EQ to get rid of those things that I know will hurt the mix. And then I will use a shelving EQ, which we probably don't have here, like the Pultec or something like that, to just kind of add and sweep certain bands. But when I hit my master bus, I really only do a few dB the most in gain for anything. Like bands, I really don't do too much. I kind of treat it like a real mastering process where mastering engineers might only use half a dB of boost for a certain frequency. That way they don't kill your mix. So I kind of take that same mentality, just a little bit more extreme, maybe like 2 dB max. And then the rest, I'll just use my limiter to you know, kind of give me my loudness. So let's just kind of look at what we're doing. right, so in this case, since we're wrapping up, this is what I would do at the end of like a quick mix for a client if I got done tracking a session or working with the artist, and I just needed something that they can play in their car, or play, send to people, send to their A&R or something like that. That just allows me to get that volume that's competing with anything that they're playing in their iTunes or something like that. Now, I'm just trying to think of anything else that would be cool to show you guys, because that's pretty much gain staging. I mean, everything that I just showed you is, if you apply it to any problematic area when it comes to dealing with amplitude and decibels, that will pretty much save you. And that, there's other ways to go about it, but that's pretty much the safest way that I've learned. And I've kind of taken that, and it's kind of helped me throughout the last 3 years that I've been here in LA, compared to a lot of times when I was very, 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 very amateur, and I didn't understand the science behind volume and things of that nature. But that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, that'd be excellent right now for like the last 15 minutes. I think we got something. Oh, okay. Yep. So I was being an engineer, and now I need to be a marketer. And shameless plug time. So make sure you follow our social media. And I'm going to give that to you right now. It is for the Instagram. It's going to be RRF. So RRF Connection, at RRF Connection. That's the Instagram. Moderator's writing right now. And our Twitter is at Recording Connection. Oh, Recording Connect. With no T. So RECORDINGCONNEC. No T. And our Facebook is RRF Connection. So Instagram, RRF Connection. Facebook, RRF Connection. And Twitter is going to be Recording Connect. So follow us. You can follow me on Instagram. Mine is The Sound of Keys, at The Sound of Keys, THESOUNDOFKEYS. Same thing as my Twitter, and I don't want you to follow me on Facebook, but you can follow me on the Facebook for the school. Next week we're gonna be rolling out a bunch of activities, and we're gonna be doing this a lot more consistently. Actually, next year. Sorry, not next week. Next year. Next year we're gonna be really rolling out a lot. We're gonna start uploading a lot more material to our social networks, Facebook, things that you can learn. We'll have contests. We'll have networking events, or networking opportunities actually for students. Yeah, just log on and actually just stay tuned. For you guys that aren't in the chat, that aren't enrolled in our program, definitely should look into it. Give us a call here. Talk to our admissions counselors. If you want to talk to me, get some info from me, definitely do that. I used to work in admissions, so I know pretty much everything about the company. So just give me a call. We can talk, shop, or whatever you want to do. And that's it for all that I have to say. Cool. So just a second. All right, boom. There we go. I see myself. There's no questions. I don't even know what we need to do. Let's see. So tell me. Oh yeah, also, can't forget that. This stream is actually going to be on YouTube. So make sure that when you, if you need to review this video for anything that I might have shown you, make sure you make a reply. All that stuff kind of helps, just build the buzz. If we can really build a community, it'll allow us to do better things. We work with Gonzalez Place and a lot of different companies that are in the recording field. So the bigger that we get with these things, the more we can intertwine what we do with what they do, and it just is more beneficial for you guys. So just support, reply, interact. And like I said, if you need to get in contact with any of us here to get some more information about, going to a recording connection studio in your city or your state, just give us a call and get some information. All right, good people, take care.